dissertation process is actually impossible. Would you believe me? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you why writing the perfect dissertation is impossible and what you can do instead. Remember that your job as a doctoral student is to have a done dissertation, not a perfect dissertation. So we are going to talk about the strategies and insights that you can use in order to apply to your dissertation process so you can let go of the idea that you need to be perfect. Again, my name is Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation. I want to say thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of From ABD to PhD show. And I'm also founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. So if you are a doctoral student and you are in need of support, you want to get through your dissertation process quickly, and it's time for you to get the doctor and get it over and done with, and you just don't have a strategy or don't have a support and don't have the process down quite yet in order to do it yourself, I would invite you to apply to the Velocity Group Coaching Program, which is the sponsor of today's episode. And again, the Velocity Group Coaching Program has the purpose to help doctoral students write and defend their entire dissertation in 1 year or less. So if you're interested in learning more about the Velocity Group Coaching Program and applying, you can click the QR code that is right here or take a grab of the QR code, or you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com. Again, it's www.velocitydissertation.com. And if you're watching this live, can you please just drop it in the comments or whatever platform you're on, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, be very helpful. I'll come back around and loop with you all after we finish today's episode. So I'm looking forward to talking about this because so many of you all and so many folks that I've worked with in our done dissertation programs have this idea that the dissertation has to be perfect. And it's almost like at times you may have put the dissertation on this pedestal like it has to be your life's work. But I think what many of you will come to realize is that that doesn't have to be the case, right? You can get this dissertation done. And the folks who have finished know this. So if I got any folks right now who are on that have actually defended their dissertation and now are a doctor, let us know in the comments. You probably understand this as well as, as anybody, that this document doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And of course, a high quality. So I'm not saying put bad work out there. But there are some things that I keep seeing when I talk to doctoral students about this idea around perfection that I want to kind of debunk a little bit and really talk through, because I want you all to understand why writing this dissertation is impossible. The perfect dissertation is impossible, and what you can do instead, because we're all about giving practical insight and resources at Done Dissertation. So what I want you to consider, right? The first thing when we talk about why writing the perfect dissertation is impossible is this idea that, remember, you are a human being and this is a human experience. I don't care what anyone says. They may make it and quote it and put it in scientific, oh, we're doing scientific work, et cetera, like we're machines or robots. But y'all, we are human. As humans, there's no one that's perfect. There is always going to be some sort of human error involved in anything that we do, and it especially applies to the dissertation. I mean, you have to remember, right? I just take my dissertation, for example. From the first page of the document, we look at the PDF version of it, to the last final page after all the appendices, references, etc. My document was 221 pages. Why I wanted to be perfect, I've defended my dissertation now almost going on 9 years ago. There is stuff I still find when I'm showing our clients different things for my dissertation. I still find errors and things that, I could have fixed, but maybe have missed during the process. And that was after having an editor look at it. After having our graduate school, they had to go through it and read it top to bottom. So there was a number of eyes on it. It's just something about the dissertation, about any big document, sometimes it's just so big that there will always be some sort of error with it. I will say, though, that if you are someone who might struggle with the mechanics of writing, and you may find that, and this may be a recommendation from your committee, is they may say, you know what, get this edited. By all means, go through that process, because having a great editor is so important. It's something I use in my own writing since the dissertation process, even in my own academic writing. I always work with the editor, because you need someone at certain points in time to take a look and just clean things up, because sometimes you get to a point where you can't clean it up and you can't see the errors of your ways anymore. So I'm always about looking for and getting editors. If you need insight to that, I'd be happy to recommend editors to you. You can just shoot us a DM on whatever platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or drop a comment or somewhere. Just leave us your email or jump on our website at www.thedonedissertation.com. Just leave us a note and we can definitely send a referral if you're in need of an editor. Because honestly, you're going to find so many mistakes. So it's no point of agonizing over getting every word right. Just get this thing done. It makes your life so much easier. But a lot of you all won't submit because you're trying to get it perfect. I want you to recognize and hear me clear when I say this. Perfection with your dissertation does not exist. I'll say it one more time. Perfection with your dissertation does not exist, so don't try it. It just will leave you more frustrated than anything. I've seen people do it and get frustrated and go back and forth with their chair about why things aren't going through when you spent a lot of time doing it. All those ideas and incidences happen during this process. And when I kind of peel back the layer, it all stems to a student wanting to have it perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. You want to get it done in high quality. Again, I'm not for folks submitting subpar work. We're all about having high quality work at done dissertation, but it's never going to be perfect. So when we think about this also, when we think about why writing a perfect dissertation is impossible, the second component I want you to realize is that everyone on your committee has a different perspective. And because of that, one person might think a certain way about a certain topic, and another person might think very differently. And just to give it a practical example, what happens sometimes when you have dissertation committees is that, let's say, for instance, you are doing a qualitative study, and your chair is a qualitative researcher, but you have a committee member that you really like. They're a subject matter expert, but their whole lens around research is through a quantitative lens. And so what might happen during your dissertation process might be you're doing all of this writing, and especially like in the findings, let's say, for instance, you're talking about your participants going back and forth about what they said. But now that quantitative person is going to put their lens on what they are reading and may say, hey, why don't you have percentages for the number of participants who said this particular insight? So it's almost like they have to put their quant lens on a qualitative study. I see this happen all the time. It's probably happening to some of you all that are watching. So if this is you and it's happened to you, let us know in the comments, because it's not uncommon, right? I'm not saying that, but this is something to consider, because there are a lot of the dissertation process is subjective in many ways. What we have done at the dissertation is make it where you understand how to navigate those lines of subjectivity that your committee members might have, and then also having a way to streamline the process from what we know that works to make sure that there's it limits the folks' insights around subjectivity around your dissertation. But it's just a matter of preference, right? And why I say this is because I always frame it, my background's in music. I used to be a music teacher. My background is in instrumental education. And, as a music educator, what we did was very creative, right? Our students were playing music. I learned how to play different instruments when I was a kid and just grew through that in college. And I applied what I've learned in music to the dissertation. Music is a creative process. You are creating something that didn't exist before you got on your instrument, got on your keyboard, whatever it is, right? The same thing applies to your dissertation. You are developing insights and knowledge that didn't exist before you created it. Because of that, I would argue that writing a dissertation and just the writing process in and of itself is actually more artistic than it is scientific. But somehow when we're in doctoral programs, it only gets taught to you as a doc student as something being scientific. So you need to make sure you write in this way or follow this type of framing. But what you will see if you read enough journals and you read inside and outside your discipline, there are so many different ways to write and approach the work. So this is why I say having the perfect dissertation is impossible, because it is very subjective, and your committee has their own opinions about certain things. Your job, though, is not to get it perfect, but to understand the individual kind of nuances that your particular professors like and their preferences, their creative preferences. And those are the ones you incorporate into your document to the best of your ability. That is the part where I see a lot of folks don't do. And then they get mad because they feel like it's perfect to them. But you got to recognize that your audience is not you. Your audience is those 3 to 5 folks who are on your committee at that point. Then when you start writing for a publication, your audience starts to broaden about the people who are going to review the work. So your audience will change. But for right now, your audience is those committee members. So you got to keep that in mind. If any of this is resonating to you, let me know in the comments what in particular has stood out to you. Because I know sometimes in particular that the writing process, we make it feel so scientific, but I'm like, y'all, it's actually real creative. Y'all create a new knowledge. You have to give it the space to do that and recognize that folks have their preferences. If you're someone who's been trying to navigate those kind of politics with your professors and not sure exactly how to do it, and getting frustrated through the journey, don't go through this thing alone. There are ways to get support, and one of those is through our Velocity coaching program, which I would invite you to apply for if you're interested. You can scan the QR code that is here on the screen, or you can visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program and click one of the buttons to apply. Because what I know is that there are a lot of folks who continue to just go through the process, and stay stuck. But it's like, why stay stuck when you can get some support? We want to work with people who find like, look, I'm ready, finally ready to get this thing done. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to make that investment in my time, my resources, whether that be monetarily resources or other resources to get this process done. There is no need to be, ABD sitting around forever because I want folks to do this impactful research and get out there in the field. And so, with that said, I want to talk about one other point when we're thinking about why writing a perfect dissertation is impossible. What I want you to consider is that research standards evolve. I think what we often think about is that, when we look at our favorite scholars' work, and when you're thinking through your dissertation process, you have those key scholars right in your area, and you've read all of their work, and it seems so large, like they had this big body of work that they've built. But you have to recognize that it took them somewhere 10, 20, 30 years to build that large body of work. For your dissertation, you're just being able to start the journey. And some of you are putting so much pressure on yourself to get it perfect. And one of the symptoms of perfection is taking on too much with the dissertation. And so, what this will look like and how perfection manifests in a research project is that when I look at your work, you might say, yeah, I'm going to do a mixed method study and I'm going to talk to these 4 or 5 constituent groups and I'm going to do all these surveys and yada, yada, yada. It's all these things, right? And when we peel back the layer, that's because you want it to be perfect and you want to capture everything for the project because you feel like in order to have a done dissertation, it has to be perfect and have no limitations, no flaws, etc. That is not the way to go about your dissertation. You have to think about your dissertation as just a, if you will, calling card to the rest of your career. And I would just say, I always think about it like this, like the dissertation process is the last step in getting your membership into the doctor club, right? You're joining a club of folks. I think it's like 0.2% of the United States population has a doctorate. And I'm sure it's probably similar in other countries, right? And and so you have to consider that you're becoming part of a small group of folks who may be able to successfully go through this process. And another way I kind of think about this journey, so as a way to kind of conceptualize is that imagine, right, that you have built a house. And if you know anything about building a house, in order to build a house, you have to first have the foundation for the house. And the foundation has to be set. I would say that your doctoral program, doing your coursework is the beginning of setting that foundation. And your dissertation is kind of that last level of the foundation being set that everything else your house can be built on, your academic house can be built on, whether you go into, writing, research, or whether you're doing consulting, whatever you're going to do to build on top of your doctorate, because maybe you got into getting this doctorate for a particular purpose, because otherwise it's just, some of us like to have lifelong learning, but we do it for the goal of some other goal. Whatever that is, that's part of building your academic house. But the dissertation is the foundation of that. So without the foundation, you can't have the rest. So the thing is that you have the ability in your career to do all the things. But a sign I see of perfectionism manifesting your writing and your dissertation process is that you try to do all the things within the dissertation process. That is not the place to do it. You will have all the time as doctor to do all those things. In your dissertation, you only need to cover one particular topic very well, just one. And if your project seems to have multiple tentacles to it and you're figuring out trying to how to do it and it's starting to become overwhelming, I will take that because there are some of y'all who can manage a large scope project, right? So don't get me wrong, I'm not deterring anyone from doing it. But if you are someone who knows that your work has multiple tentacles, but you're having trouble managing all of those and it gets overwhelming on where to start, then I want you to take a look at all the tentacles and pick one. And that becomes the focus of your dissertation. It makes it so much easier. And then those other tentacles are for the work that you will do that stems from the dissertation. And what I learned from doing my own research is that when you do your dissertation research, oftentimes you find new insights that are new to your field. And from that work, it leads you to new questions. And so from your dissertation, you'll have new questions that you want to answer. And it'll become pretty clear after going through this process about what your next step might be if you're someone who wants to continue doing research in this area. But again, I wanted to share with you all today in this brief video why writing a perfect dissertation is impossible. Because again, at done dissertation, we're all about having a done dissertation, not a perfect one. You got to remember, when you're writing and when you're sitting down to write, the thoughts that go through your head should never be about this has to be perfect. Because if I have a book some of y'all may have read called 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, a guide to navigating the dissertation process and finishing in record time. And in this particular book, I talk about this idea of what I call the 80% rule. And what we talk about in the 80% rule is that you have to, when you sit down to write, is not to get it perfect. Your job when you sit to write is to actually get it to 80% satisfaction. and then allow your committee to help support you to get it the rest of the way. Because what I see too many folks do is that they want to get it perfect. They spend all this time to do it and then they get frustrated. But no, your job is to get 80%. Let your committee take you the rest of the way because, again, perfection doesn't exist. And if you're someone who is interested in learning more about the book, you can scan that QR code that's up in the corner of your video and it'll take you to the website to learn more about the book and grab a copy if you are interested in getting it as well. And I'll bring it up here in a larger format so you can scan the QR code to get your copy of 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation. It's a great book for someone when you're trying to figure out how to get started. What's the mental strategy? What's the actual tangible things that you can do right now to get through the process quickly? And so with that, I wanted to leave you with those words because I think a lot of us, there's such an opportunity to do this work. And I want you all to continue moving forward in this way. And I don't want us to get stuck trying to get our work perfect because perfection just doesn't exist, y'all. It's just it's so hard to achieve. You want to be done. And you probably wonder why some of your colleagues who you feel like, and I always say this, but I think this is an internal thought that some of you all might have, is that there's this idea that I see my colleagues finishing their dissertations and I know those jokers aren't as smart as me. And if you have thought this, I know some of y'all have. So that's why I'm putting it out there. I'll speak for you. So, you might be thinking, well, these folks aren't even that smart as me. Like, how are they getting through and I'm not? Part of it is that some of folks have recognized that I can't be perfect in this. I got to get this thing done and do a great job while doing it. And that's the difference maker. And if you are someone and you've been trying to do this thing, and I would say if you've been spending, over 6 months and you have not made progress, it is at some point that you got to figure out what can I do differently to get a different result. And for some of you all, it might be the idea of getting support in order to invest in a coach or invest in some support to get you through the process. And if that's you and you're someone who wants to get done and you are just tired of being stuck in the same circle, I would invite you to apply to work with us in our Velocity Coaching Program, which is our goal in our Velocity Coaching Program to help you write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less from start to finish. So if you're someone who is interested, you can scan the QR code that is here on the screen, or you can visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our offering and to apply to work with us. I love our clients. Our clients are phenomenal. Shout out to a couple of clients. I'll put them out there maybe in the next video to talk about. We have one folks who are getting ready to defend today. At the time of this recording, I have another one who is actually defending tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to shouting them out and supporting one who's getting their actual doctorate and finishing up. Another one's defending their dissertation proposal. And so I'm looking forward to acknowledging them on the next live session with you all. But again, what you all can do before we wrap up is if you are still on, if you can hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube and the notification bell so you can know when another episode comes out. And if you're watching this on another platform and or on YouTube, share this out with 3 people who you find that can get support from it. And if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, just go ahead and hit the share button and type and let us know what you thought was insightful from it and share it with your community because I want to get the word out to more doctoral students about these insights that help them get through the dissertation process quickly. And again, I want to say thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I really do appreciate you all. So let me know if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be sure to loop back around with you after I finish here wrapping up the recording. I will jump in the comments with you and answer any particular questions that you all might have. Again, at Done Dissertation, we want to help support you to get through this process. So don't go through this thing alone. You have support. So go ahead and work and apply to work with us in our Velocity Coaching Program. And just to wrap up, I'm your host, Dr. Mo Goings of From ABD to PhD show. I look forward to seeing you next week on another episode. And if there's any type of insight or content that you want to have on future episodes, please let us know. Shoot me a DM, shoot me a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And until next week, I hope you have a great week. Have happy writing. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. And take one step closer after today's episode to get yourself closer to a done dissertation. I'll see you next week. Take care.